Hi, good evening, everyone. I am Shailendra Marathe. I am pleased to welcome you to today's webinar of Indic Academy, specifically the Indic Book Club. At Indic Book Club, we always encourage the authors to write books. We hold various webinars sessions for the authors. We are in 2021, so all life has gone virtual. Otherwise, we used to meet together on many occasions as well. I have coordinated activities of IBC at Pune since last about 3-4 years, and many people, including Mayuresh, have helped us in conducting these kind of activities and in launching various books. So today I am pleased to welcome Mayur or Mayuresh. So he's a friend, of course. I think I should announce that so that you know that we know each other well. A fantastic author, in my opinion. I really look forward to what he writes, right? And has also been a friend who guided me a lot on how to write a fiction, but I have not been able to write one as yet, and the entire blame lies with me. So welcome to this session. Welcome, Mayuresh.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us today. So this is the book which is the context for today's discussion, right? The book is A Bad Place. It has a kind of a haunted mansion on the cover page, in case the bad place doesn't convey something to you, right? So very good art really on the cover page.
Thank you.
Mayur, fantastic. Your designer has done a very good job. So to start with, Mayuresh, your previous novel or a collection of stories, Nagin, right? That's where I found that it was really very well written, and then it is followed by now A Bad Place, another thriller horror, from that genre, right? So how did you develop liking to this? Why do why are you following up with this sequence of a horror, right? So what is the story behind that? I mean, if you can tell us.
Actually, I think all our writing is an outgrowth of our reading. Is my firm belief. Uh, we would like to, however, if you would allow me to digress for a minute, I think I would also like to take a quick minute to thank everybody from the Indic Academy, including Abhinav Agarwal, who has been working so hard on behalf of the Indic Academy for getting this done. Uh, my writing career I owe a lot in my writing career to the people I met through Indic Academy, most specifically Professor Ramesh Rao of he is a professor in an American university, and in my early fiction and non-fiction work, I was guided a lot by him and also by the mentor of Indic Academy, Mr. Hari Kiran, and I think I owe all of them a debt of gratitude as we discuss this. Thank you, Shailendra, for this opportunity. Coming to your question about how do you develop your liking, I think most of the time we start writing as an act of fandom. So most of the time we begin writing because we like somebody's writing and then we want to imitate. So they say that imitation is the best form of flattery, and that is how it begins. So in my case, since the time I read Shining when I was like maybe 18 or 19-year old, I have become a big fan of Stephen King. I have read pretty much every book that he has written. And over a period of time, I have added a few other writers like Mr. Ray Bradbury, Richard Matheson, Shirley Jackson, James Herbert. So these are all outstanding writers who work in the genre of. So this is a pretty broad base. So supernatural is actually a pretty broad based term. So if I compare Nagin to say A Bad Place, those two books are not the same in terms of tone, in terms of mood, in terms of atmosphere, except for the fact that they have got something which is not from a normal world going on in them. So there is something supernatural. A Bad Place is more firmly into the category of a horror novel. It's a haunted house story. I think, and which is one of the reason why even in the acknowledgement section I have mentioned Stephen King and no, Shirley Jackson, because if I was not such a big fan of The Shining and The Haunting of Hill House, these two to me are the ultimate haunted house stories. So if I was not such a big fan of them, and if I have not read those books multiple times, then I think I don't think I would have thought of writing this story. So most of the time, your writing grows organically out of your reading. and which is why the other two novels that I have written, The Dark Road and Tears for Strangers, which are both published on Juggernaut as digital books, are actually from a crime thriller. So these are non-supernatural novels. Those are an outgrowth of my fascination with crime thriller writer or psychological thriller writers like Thomas Harris, Michael Connelly, Jonathan Kellerman, and Dennis Lehan. So, I mean, I have read a lot of stories written by these gentlemen, and I'm a Julian Flynn. I'm sorry, I forgot to add one more. So, Julian Flynn. So, I have read a lot of literature written by these outstanding authors, and at some point of time, I must have started thinking that, wow, I think I should try and write something like that. And these books are the uh, final product of that fascination.
Great. Thanks, Mayuresh. Yeah, because that question, came to my mind when we spoke some time back, and you said this novel is coming up. Now, I think you, having a firm grasp on this genre, you very well clarified how a subtle difference between Nagin, right, and something like which is supernatural versus supernatural horror. So, but apart from that, it was a collection of short stories, right? So, and sort of when we could read one in maybe an hour or so, right, and then pick up another tomorrow. Whereas The Bad Place is a novel, right, and it builds sequentially. So, did you plan to move from? Was there anything like planning to move from writing short stories to novel in this genre, right? Was it something like that? What is the difference between these two? As an author, what do you have to do differently? Is there something that you can tell us about that?
So my first self-published book was called Kumbhapur Rising, which was again in the genre of horror and supernatural. In fact, short stories is something that I would like to give credit to the team at Juggernaut for. So I had never thought of myself as a short story writer because I had really not read a lot of short stories other than Ray Bradbury. So Ray Bradbury is the only writer whose short stories I used to read fairly regularly. But however, my editors at Juggernaut, successive editors at Juggernaut, encouraged me to also contribute in the form of short stories because partly also because that format suited their digital platform better than a long read, and partly also because they thought that I was really strong at writing those. So other than Nagin, I have contributed maybe around close to 20 short stories even on the Juggernaut platform. So I am sort of switching between these two methods. And today I have reached a stage where, having written 5 novels, 4 of which are now published, and having written about 30 odd short stories, I feel I'm developing. I would like to think that I'm developing some kind of an intuition about whether a particular idea or whether a particular concept is suitable to a shorter format or a longer format. Now, as novels go, this is A Bad Place is actually my shortest novel. It's only 196 pages, so this is like a 4-hour kind of a read. My other 3 novels are a little about 50, 60 pages longer than that. Kumbhapur was actually over 300 pages. So these are different formats that you are thinking of, and they have their own distinctive arc of writing. And today, I think I feel very fortunate that I'm very happy experimenting between those two formats.
Great, thanks. You say it can be read in 4 hours, but it took me quite some time to read that because I used to pick it up in the evening, and after a few pages I used to put it down, right? So maybe a faint-hearted person, and then I had to read it only in the afternoon, find time from work and do that. But excellent
That's
job
the
at
best
that.
compliment you can give to a horror
No,
fan.
it is definitely like that, and I had really goosebumps, and then I said after one or two tries, I said I'm going to read it in the afternoon only. But really a fantastic job. So I think one thing now you made a very important mention. You develop that intuition and understanding. How much that idea can be developed, right? So can it be a, let's say, 150, 200 pages novel, or should it be, let's say, 20 pages, kind of a book? So this brings me to how you develop that, because it's a fiction, right? So if you are writing a business novel, there are X number of things that should be there. When you're writing about entrepreneurship, these aspects need to be covered. So how do you develop that? How does this plot develop in your mind? Do you sort of start jotting down points? Once I demonstrated my plot to you and you were laughing for half an hour, right? It was Excel sheets with so many columns, etc. I'm sure you don't do that, but if you do that, do tell us. So how do you do that? How does this plot develop and become a 150, 200 pages, well thought out novel, with the connection throughout, right? And you have things jumping back and forth, sort of backstories developing, etc. How does it develop? How do you develop the plot for such a novel?
So frankly speaking, I am not really a big fan of plots. I think most of the time plots get in the way of connecting with your reader. So there is an invisible thread which connects a writer to a reader, and that thread only connects if it is made up of something which is very organic. And I really don't think so. Stephen King, my favorite writer, has a very favorite quotation. He says that I do not like to write plots because life is largely plotless. So if you are writing a real sounding character, if you want to talk about blood and flesh people and their journey in a particular period of their life, then actually life really doesn't follow a plot, or life really doesn't have a plot. Life can have incidents, life can have happenings, life can have accidents, but those are not the same thing as plot. However, there are equally good writers on both sides of these arguments. So for example, a few years ago I had attended Jaipur Literature Festival, where Mr. Ashwin Sanghi and Mr. Ashwin Sanghi had told us. So Mr. Ashwin Sanghi writes these novels in collaboration with James Patterson, and he had when we were talking about their methodology, he said that for a 70,000 word novel, they would write down an outline of 10,000 words. So which is actually a very exhaustive outline even by the standards of people who do plotting. In my case, I am actually not good at plotting. So sometimes when you have to get a book commissioned, you have to send an outline in order to get a contract. And there is an ongoing joke with my editors that other than the character's name, the outline that I send and the first draft that I send have pretty much nothing in common. So it is just that okay, I'm going to write about XYG characters and I keep on changes. I do not do that deliberately, but I really don't think it is possible for me to uh, have that much of knowledge about my own characters until and unless I actually start writing them. So somebody had said, I'm not sure whether it is Aaron Sorkin, the writer of A Few Good Men, or somebody else, and he was quoting him. But they have said that writing a work of fiction is like traveling on a dark highway at night. So you can only see as far as your car's headlight will go, but you can still complete your journey that way. So when you are driving at night, for you, everything beyond the reach of your headlights is in darkness. But it will still take you from Pune to Goa. It will still take you from Pune to Bangalore if you are following that. So that is my methodology of writing. So now, for example, now I'm working on a concept which initially I had thought I would finish in a kind of a novella, longer than a short story, shorter than a novel, maybe about 25,000 words, which is about 100 pages. Now I am at about 42,000 words in my first draft, and I still know that I have got at least another 100 pages to go. So which means that out of nowhere, what I was thinking was a long short story is now turning into a full-fledged novel. So that is actually part of the charm also. So as an aspiring writer, if you are doing this, if you are doing this to kind of build your career, it's very difficult to continue doing that if you're not enjoying the process. And for me, the biggest fun in the process is actually discovering what your book is all about as you go along, rather than sort of writing it down in neatly in whatever Excel sheets or a Word file that you talking about.
No, I'll take that Excel sheet. Yes, I deserve that. But then that leads me to another question. I mean, yes, I think you said this 25, K maybe sort of idea becoming 45K as an example. But then how do you control it? See, if there is no plot, right? There is a challenge that I have faced. So I'm asking on behalf of myself as well as many, sort of people who have never wrote a novel, but they try to write it. So how do you control? I mean, where do you sort of, if there is no plot, maybe 10,000 words is probably a lot of detail. Maybe you don't have that, but still, unless you have that, how do you control where the novel is going? How we are sticking to that particular target, right? Or there will be some key idea in your mind. What will happen in this story, right? How do you keep control on that in that case?
I have I have a view which is slightly maybe a minority view. So I'm really not a big fan of controlling the writer controlling writing. I'm really not a big fan of being in control of my writing. So the moment you start controlling, then what you are doing is, I think you are imposing your own thought process on your characters. And that means everything, including your political, ideological belief, your social beliefs, your economical beliefs will come into play. And you do not want 10 copies of yourself with different names talking to each other in a book, because that is what happens in bad writing. In good writing, you want to have people with different viewpoints, people believing fervently in different viewpoints, talking, clashing, and interacting with each other. Now, that's very difficult to happen unless you learn to let go. So, let me say it this way, to put it a little dramatically, I would say that it is best if you understand your role as a writer is actually the first reader of your own story, because you no longer know what that story is about until unless you have told that story to yourself. So your first draft is you are telling that story to yourself, and in that first draft you are actually the primary reader. You are the first person who finds out what happens to the characters that you are talking about. The best example that I can give about this is my first novel with Juggernaut called The Dark Road, and that is where I introduced my protagonist Prasanna Killedar, whom I hope to speak about later in this session. Now, initially, Dark Road actually started. So that time I had just finished Kumbhapur Rising, and I was actually thinking of a second supernatural. So by at that point of time, I was actually pretty sure that I want to, like Stephen King, I want to write only supernatural and horror novels, at least at the beginning of my career. And Dark Road actually came as an idea of two sisters who have been murdered 8 years apart, and the sister who got murdered 8 years ago, her ghost helping the investigator finding the killer of the second sister who got murdered. Those of you who have read the novel know that there is no ghost. I mean, it's a spoiler alert, but now I don't care. That book has been out for a long time, and there is no, I mean, there is no supernatural element. And until I reached about 30,000, 32,000 words, which is about 125 pages, where I had to make that decision, I was actually, it could have still gone either way. But once I reached there, I realized that everything that I had told to myself would start sounding inauthentic or false if I go down that road of a ghost story, and it would start sounding more and more real if I start go down the road of the non-supernatural story, a real crime thriller story. And I went down that route. And I think for me the results were worth it.
Great. This what you said now gives rise to two questions actually. So let me ask you the first one, which is about. Am I clearly audible, Mayuresh?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. I thought. Yeah. So how do you develop the characters? Are these people that you have met in life? Of course, maybe you will borrow a description from somewhere. Killedar, how your protagonist looks, etc. That's okay. The physical description, but in terms of their habits. How they think, how they behave. Are they real life people that you know closely, for example, or they are again invented based on a lot of novels you have read? For example, is there a chance that in some novel I might discover there's a character like me? Right, that's the question.
So
I hope not, but yeah.
no, what happens is that actually writing about real life people with different names is actually a good way of creating enemies for yourself. So I really do not do that. I most of the time, and also see, let us face it, that most of the time real life people are nowhere near as interesting as you require characters to be. So I mean, I really don't think that me in real life, the kind of person that I am in my, for example, in my at my work or while I'm writing, is interesting enough for anybody to write. So that means what you would have is only a skeleton of the kind of thought processes or actions or beliefs you have, and then you are making up the rest of the stuff. Many times you would also have a kind of a mix and a match where you would take one thing observed somewhere. Now in my case, I have been in frontline sales all my life, so I keep on meeting new people almost on a daily basis. So that's actually a great place to uh, gather raw material for you, the way people. So but most of the time what would happen is that the observations in and of themselves are really not sufficient, because the danger with that is that you may get so enchanted with your ability to observe and with your ability to absorb that you start following that rather than following what the book is about or what the character wants. What the character wants is not going to be observed somewhere. That has to come from within. That has to come from your genesis of the idea. So if the idea is strong enough for you to write an entire book, there would be something that the character, the main protagonist, would want, and there would be something that is stopping the protagonist from getting to that thing. So everything else is a combination of real life and real life. So I am not sure whether I've answered your question adequately, but to me, that is how it works.
No, that gives me some idea, and also I'm safe, right? I realize I won't have to read a boring character there in the book. So that the second one was, I think you spoke about the way your novel takes shape, right? So let's say the first draft is done, right? Is it a vomit draft as people call it? Is it your approach, or you revise the draft during the writing process itself? That's number one. And then also, let's say once you have the first draft, right? How many revisions does it typically undergo, and what would determine that? Because this is a very strenuous process, right? So first draft, I don't know how happy you will be with your first draft, and you might want to go back and change something. So how frequently revisions are done, and let's say you have first draft before you give it to somebody to see professionally, right? I'm not talking after you give or take somebody's help to review. Before that, how many times would you typically revise?
So again, a disclaimer: I'm really not a stereotype. I'm not really a typical case. So most of the time, writers have their own team of beta reader to whom they hand over the book even before sending it to editor. In my case, most of the time, my editors are the first ones to read my book. So it's a riskier method, because that would also mean that if sufficient work has not gone into the book, you risk rejection. So you need to sort of keep that in mind when you are doing that. But in my case, that process works for me. Now, the first draft that you're writing, in my case, is really not a very neat draft. So there is a joke that I always like to tell. So again, it goes back to the Dark Road. When I was writing Dark Road, I use your Microsoft Word or whatever, and in that, that if you do a spelling mistake, you get a blue underline. If you do a grammatical mistake, you get a blue underline, and if you do a spelling mistake, you get a red underline. And I had decided that I'll fix all of those once I finished writing that. And when I was about, so the book is about, I think, 75,000 words in the first draft, 78,000 words in the first draft. And when I was at about 55,000 words, I get this little notification window from Windows saying that Word is turning the spell check off because you have not attended to it for a long time, something like that. So that's the place where even your software is giving up on you. Your software is saying that, okay, clearly you do not want to do this. That is how I write. Now, there are people. So, for example, a few years ago, I had met Anand Ranganathan in Bangalore, and he says that he does not write more than maybe 500 words in a day, but those 500 words are his final draft. I mean, that is what, so until and unless he's satisfied with them. There is a very famous author called Kurt Vonnegut. So, from the 50s and 60s, yeah, I think he was an American author, if I'm not wrong, who used to polish every line of every word that he used to say. And his editors literally used to say that you can take Kurt's manuscript and send it to set to print. There is nothing else to be done to that. Now, I think you require a different level of virtuosity in order to do something like that. Most of the authors that I know actually follow my method of not writing a very clean first draft. As to whether you are satisfied with a draft or not satisfied with a draft, I would say, as a writer, you need to learn to be satisfied with each of the draft. And what I mean to say is that you need to understand the function of each of the draft. So the function of the first draft is for you to tell your story. So I am satisfied with every first draft where I can write the end at the end. So if I've completed the story, I'm satisfied. That means I have finished telling the story to myself. That is all the function that the first draft has to do. Then what you do is that, in my case, most of the time I go back and fix all the spelling mistakes, all the housekeeping work which is there. I take care of that. And then I usually try to give myself a target of cutting down the word count by about 15%. So if my first draft is say 90,000 words, I will try to cut about 13,500 words out of that and to bring it to whatever 76,500, if I'm not wrong. So 76,500 words. It might sound like an arbitrary number. It is an arbitrary number. I really do not have a reason why it is 15% and not 20% or not 10%. But actually, what you are doing is that you are tightening. So what you do from a first draft to a published book is you are tightening your story. You are making it tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter until you reach a stage where you know that if you try to take anything out of it even more, then you'll break something. So there are two things. There is one is a narrative consistency there is a coherence to the narrative, the character development. Now these things require a minimum amount of space. Now, as a commercial fiction writer, my job is to make sure that I am occupying that minimum amount of space and not a page more, because I want to keep my readers from turning pages over. It is not as if I have not enjoyed long books. So some of my most favorite books have been fairly long. Stephen King's Stand is a 1300-page book. But then I would also say this for him, that you can take at least 400 pages of description out of Stand and not lose anything of the story. So the story that Stephen King has told so well in Stand is the same story that he could tell with 400 pages. So sometimes it is just that people want to read more out of you. But until you reach that stage, I think it's better for you to work on tightening your narrative. So that means what you do is that the two places that I look for mostly is dialogues, because in my case, I have a tendency of people reinforcing the same thing in the same dialogue. So it would be like, Shailendra will not do that. He will refuse. So if I have already said Shailendra will not do that, then he will refuse is unnecessary. So my job is to cut that out. Second thing, sometimes I have a tendency of over describing the setting. So if I walk into a room, I have an because I have a very visual method of writing. So most of the time when I'm writing, I'm visualizing the scenes. I'm playing those scenes in my mind. I have a tendency of describing where the sofa was, what magazines were kept on the coffee table, and so forth, which is not required in every incident or every part of the book. So the second part that I do it. So as a writer, you will also develop these kind of instincts by reading your own work over and over again.
Great, thanks. So I had a question on professional editing, but I think you answered that along the way. Then one more thing. Now this is, let's say, 45, 60, 70,000 words novel, right? End of the day. And one thing I liked again about the book is each chapter is very small. I mean, probably 2, 3 pages, 4 pages, and like that, right? So you have chunked it down, and I think it is good for today's reader, correct? I will. It will be very difficult for somebody to read the Ian Fleming novel today, correct? Because I remember a novel where first 6 or 7 pages he just describes, Bond, lying somewhere around a swimming pool, with oil and under the sun, something like that. So 6 or 7, nobody's going to, So how do you manage to, chunk it down again? Is it something that you start with originally, or maybe you think that, this chapter is bigger, and let me make it such that each chapter has its something is being told at the end of each chapter, and then move along. Chunking down, how do you do that? I mean, do you plan about it, or?
I think the best thing that you can do to understand that is actually watching serials on, especially the English serials on television. So there is a very popular serial called Breaking Bad on it's probably one of the most iconic crime dramas that television has ever seen. And if you've seen, I think it has about 68, 70 episodes across 5 seasons. If you see the end of every episode, so in television term, they use the term cliffhanger. So they leave it where you immediately want to go to the next episode and see how that particular thing got resolved. So while writing, I really do not separate chapters. So my first draft will have no chapters. I mean, I may write. I start by writing 1, 2, and then somewhere around 5, 6, 7, I forget, and I just start telling the story. So this is something that I will do after probably I have fixed the word count. So if my word count has already come to the range where I am comfortable, then I'll start working on the chapters as to where to break them. Most of the time, I would like to make a break to some kind of a key development in the story, or some kind of a revelation of character, which would, again, in terms of we in screenwriting we call it as a reversal. So most of the time, something that would flip the next page open, or flip the next card open, and push the story forward. So you try to do that so initially it helps to take it. So it's like baking bread. You make the entire bread, and then you try to make those slices. Only instead of making slices at an equal distance, you are making slices based upon where that one slice should end, if I may make a very awkward analogy. So
All right, great. No, because when I am writing, and now I got influenced by somebody's thought process saying, each chapter should have a goal, right? What you want to do in this chapter, right? It's an entirely different approach, of course. But then That was a question in my mind. So, participants, if you have any questions, please do let us know through a chat box. I see a comment from Deepak. We will take it up in some time, right? So please do that as we go along. And how do you build the quality in writing? Right? One thing I have seen is you are a prolific reader, right? I think last year in 2020, probably I think you have continued in 2021 as well. You were sort of running an entire Twitter thread of what you read, correct? And it was some 50 plus novels that you read, right? So of course I see that from you, but then what are the other things? I mean, I think definitely reading the genre is something that you do. How do you build that quality in writing? What is your point of view or perspective? How do you bring that depth, maybe in characters, situations, how the story flows, right? What is one thing that will help people in building that quality?
I think Stephen King has written a great book called On Writing. I always recommend people to read that book. In that book, the first advice that he has given is called read a lot, write a lot. And I really cannot think of better advice than that. You need to read a lot. Now, I don't read, I necessarily did not start reading because I wanted to write or I wanted to write better. I started reading because that time I wanted to improve my English. I had come from a rural parts of Maharashtra to Pune to do my studies, and I was really not very good in English. And I had this mistaken notion that if I read novels, I'll improve my English. So I don't know whether my spoken English improved or not, but I found a new thing that I felt that I was very passionate about, and that passion has continued till the time. Today, I think I read merely because I cannot think of a more pleasurable activity than reading. It's something that truly gives me a pleasure. It has lifted me up when I was down due to whatever was going on in personal or professional life. It has given me perspectives. It has. I would like to think that it has helped me build things like empathy and uh, a balanced outlook by reading. So many times you would read books that are essentially stories, but then the characters are telling a truth about your own life without you ever being uh, without you ever realizing about it. So uh, 2 or 3 years ago, I read a book called All the Light We Cannot See. It's a Pulitzer Prize winning novel by, if I'm not wrong, okay, I'm sorry, that name is Anthony Doerr. Yeah, Anthony Doerr. And that novel is about a blind French girl in occupied France during World War II, and a German boy who is a wizard with electrical gadgets. So, and who has been taken under the wing of Hitler Youth, and how their lives connect with each other even when they do not meet for the entire duration of the novel. Now, that novel, without being political, has made so many points which are relevant to the problems that we think about today or the crisis that we face today. That reading that novel was a profound revelation for me, not just in my literary life but also in my personal life, and which is actually the best thing that the good books do. Those books tell the truth about yourself by telling lies about people who never existed. So the blind French girl and that blonde German boy never existed, but in by telling their story, the author is probably telling truth that a lot of us would not otherwise face. So I would say that building quality comes as a writer. Building quality comes out of practice. So if I read what I've written in Kumbhapur Rising, and if I read what I've written in my fifth novel, I like to think that I've improved over the last whatever 10, 12 years. I would like to think that if I'm writing novels another 10 years from now, that writing would still be better than what I'm writing today. So that quality is actually a continuous process, and I think many times the less you are uh, conscious about that, the more easy it is to achieve that. So I really don't think good writers sit down and think that I'm going to write a quality book. They just say that I want to write an authentic book, a book that sounds real to me. The book doesn't sound forced or made up to me. And by the way, this forced and made up does not has got nothing to do with how unlikely the core concept is. So there is a saying, I like to look it up, but I think Aristotle had said that between probable impossibility and impossible probability, readers would prefer impossible probability. I'm paraphrasing, but which means that between believing that Batman has a Batmobile that can go at whatever 400 kilometers an hour and grows tires automatically, and thinking that one friend will betray another. Sometimes readers will find it difficult to believe that this one friend betrays another than a bat vehicle that can go at 400 kilometers per hour. So the idea of I don't know what book I can think of. So for example, Richard Matheson has written a book called I Am Legend, which is about a post-apocalyptic world where the entire world is taken over by zombies. Now that idea in itself is fairly unlikely, but then what happens to Robert Neville, the protagonist of I Am Legend, is so authentic that you accept that improbable possibility rather than thinking about it as a some kind of an unlikely event to occur. So the quality comes out of authenticity. If I were to summarize it, the quality comes out of authenticity.
Right. I've heard someone say, it's quantity that, you generate and slowly come to maybe quality, right? Maybe I'll not let you go on that tangent though. So I think, see, what I've heard, I think one more thing I wanted to ask is there are some, questions coming from the participants. We'll definitely take that. We'll have good time for that. Please plug in your questions. I think we will have good time for that. So I've heard the names that you mentioned. I think Stephen King and Shirley Jackson, you have credited them, as you mentioned, The Haunting and Shining. And most of the names that you're telling me right now, right, they're all I don't know whether they're American, British, but foreign authors, so to say, right, and English stories, of course. Have any we come from vernacular background, I know you, so has anything like early Marathi story reading influenced you, non English, right? Did it have any kind of an influence, or is it still influencing you? Do you read that?
I think my reading habit got developed by Marathi books. So the fact is that I was an early reader. So I think by the time I started going to school, I was already good enough reader to read a newspaper. Because I remember in 1984, I mean, I remember a lot of sporting events that took place around 1984-85 when I was in first or second standard, which I remember reading about them in the newspaper. So I could read a Marathi newspaper by the time I was maybe 5 or 6 year old, and for that I have to give credit to my parents because we were a family of readers. Uh, I think reading as a habit needs to be inculcated early. The earlier you get your children to start reading, the better off it is. Languages are actually an instrument. Languages are like a format. So as and when. So now, for example, now I'm thinking of learning a new language, and the reason why I'm thinking of learning that new language is to read literature in that language. Now that is a process which is relatively easier rather than forcing yourself into a habit of reading every day. Now I read about 90 between 60 to 90 minutes every day because that is what I've been doing since maybe I was 12-13 year old. So I mean, since the time I was in school, I would always spend at least maybe not 90 minutes but maybe 30-40 minutes every day reading. Now once you have that habit for 30 years, what language you are reading on can continue to change. Speaking of writers in Marathi, I have been a big fan of Mr. Pula Deshpande. He's an institution more than an author, as far as we are concerned. There have been others. So I have been a big fan of the satirist movement in Marathi language. So there are other authors like Dama Mirasdar, Viya Bua. I have read quite a few of books of them. Mr. Ratnakar Matkari, whom we lost last year, he was an outstanding novelist, and I read quite a few books written by him. There are two authors who deserve mention because they wrote in the genre that I write in, horror, Mr. Dapa Khambete and Mr. Narayan Dhara. So these two gentlemen wrote quite a few horror stories, supernatural stories, and I read them when I was in school or maybe I was in junior college, and they have continued to influence me. Even today, I keep on going back to YouTube clips of Mr. Pula Deshpande's reading whenever I just want to take my mind off something. So there.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about Narayan Dhara, but I think you mentioned that. Yeah, because if you have read Marathi and you are in this genre, I think definitely would know that. So let's come back to something more closer to you, right? We are talking more about uh, the writing process, etc. So your setting, I have seen in your novels, is Pune, right? So I mean, for obvious reasons, I mean, we know Pune better. That could be one thing. But I know that so many authors, and you read so much, right? So creativity, you also travel. Why is it that you have restricted yourself to Pune, or do you feel it's not a restriction, or what is the reason behind this, particular context, right? So anything about that? Are you thinking of writing on some other location in future? What do you?
So there are two parts to the writing process. There is one part which comes from your imagination, which is the part which what happens to a bad place. So in this particular case, what happens to Suchitra Shah and Aniket Shah and their daughter when they go to live in row house number 49 in Gardenia Estate. That is part of the imagination. Other than that, the setting or the backdrop will sound authentic the more you know about it. So you would notice that not only that I don't place my novels, most of my novels in Pune, but my novels have a theme of people following endurance sports. So, for example, in Dark Road, my the victim, she is a marathon runner, and the mentor who is investigating the murder, he is a marathon runner. In A Bad Place, Suchitra Shah is a marathon runner. Because I have been a long distance runner myself, and I sort of think that that's a underexplored or under looked at world, which is a subculture which is slowly coming up in cities like Pune. So I like to write about them. Uh, I also think to a certain extent, locations by themselves really do not mean a lot unless you are writing something with a socio-historical context. So, for example, if you are writing a novel about the emergency, for example, or if you are writing a novel about the floods that happened in 1961, the Panshet dam collapse, then that is something which will have to have a particular setting and a location. My novels, yeah, I write them in Pune, but then to a certain extent, that is also a matter of convenience because I know the city well, so I like to describe the city the way it is. Uh, I also think that you should write what you know in the context of, like I mentioned, in the backdrop. So not only that I'm writing about a city that I know, I'm also writing about the kind of people that I know. So you would never find an FBI agent or the head of India's intelligence bureau as the heroes of my novel. My investigators, even when they are cops, they are police sub inspector, assistant commissioner, those kind of people, or journalists or housewives, because these are the people that I interact with. I have never been in Delhi, I have never seen. So recently I was listening to The Accidental Prime Minister by Sanjay Baru, and the subculture of Delhi that he narrated in that book actually fascinated me. But then until and unless I know that subculture well as an insider, whatever I'm trying to write will not come off as an authentic. And I think as a writer, the one underlying quest that you need to go back again and again is a quest of authenticity, the quest of sounding true. And that is one of the reasons why I choose a location that I know a lot about. Though having said that, Kumbhapur Rising is set in Konkan. So Kumbhapur Rising, only one part happens in Pune and Mumbai, and the rest of the book is set in Konkan. A lot of my short stories are set in rural Maharashtra, in fictitious towns. Mostly Kumbhapur is again a fictitious town. But again, I grew up in rural Maharashtra, so I know those places. So I write about those places.
So I spoke to you about not being able to read this novel towards the evening, right? So just like that, somebody who read it, she told me that she found it difficult again to read, and it was fairly sort of gripping because the whole context of Pune, as well as that Susha, she's told in the childhood, Hanuman, sort of
Hanuman
what you
Chalisa.
should chant when you are sort of something like ghost you see or expect to see, right? So that makes it actually more gripping, and as you said, probably that is one of the reasons for authenticity. That's great. And you preempted my question. I was going to ask about this, sort of why marathon runners have to be there in every novel. For
It's
somebody
a
like me
subculture
who,
that fascinates me. So
yeah, who
I
believes
have.
the no pain kind of a philosophy. You are telling no pain, no gain. So fine, but so what are the okay? One more thing again, coming back to the linking back to the previous question. Any point in time, do you think you will write in Marathi?
I am actually working on a project in Marathi. So in all likelihood, something in 2022 will be in Marathi.
Awesome.
I'm working very seriously towards that. I have written a screenplay in Marathi, by the way, so which is not yet produced, but it's I have already written that. So it's a language that I'm actually more comfortable with than English, because it has been my mother. It is my mother tongue.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking maybe in 2022 you'll get something to read by me in Marathi.
Yeah, and in itself, I think your previous two novels are, I think, very easily sort of, I won't say translate because it can't be done so easily, but because the whole context and situation is there, I was thinking, in the Marathi also it will have a very good impact and most probably have a good reception, right? So that's the reason I asked you this. And then the next question again, I think you preempted, what are the next projects that you are undertaking, right? What's coming up next, right? So what other horror we are going to face, right? When Mayuresh comes up with something.
Shailendra, you'll have to just give me 1 minute. I'm really sorry for this.
So I see a comment from Deepak in the chat box. But Deepak, is that a question and you want to ask Mayuresh? Please go ahead and do that. And yeah, I think something from
Yeah, I'm
Viraf.
sorry.
So yeah, no, let's
Back,
go
yeah.
get back. Yeah.
Yeah, so I have already written my next novel. I have written a novel called The Storyteller, which is a non-supernatural thriller. So Prasanna Killedar, the protagonist of Dark Road, will return as a investigator. So Prasanna Killedar, by the way, for those of you who have not read Dark Road, is my protagonist. Is a character that I have come very deeply to care about. She is a retired police officer and a single mother who now runs a investigative agency, a private investigative agency. And because of her skills at detecting murders, whenever the police are stymied, she is called to help them. So in Storyteller, the stakes are a little more personal because the victim in this case is her daughter's best friend. So she has a grown daughter who is studying in US, and her best friend gets murdered, and that is where the story opens. I have finished writing that. I have finished doing the draft and everything. So now it is in a pre-production stage. I'm thinking that we will get to read that somewhere in December. Now after that, I have already started writing the next novel. That novel is actually again a different, so that is the novel that I was telling you about, that initially I thought it would be a short long short story, but it is turning into a novel. This is again a crime thriller, but this is I like to think of it as my, so the way Kumbhapur Rising and Bad Place owe to my fascination with Mr. Stephen King and Mr. Shirley Jackson. I think this novel owes a lot to my fascination with writers like Raymond Chandler and modern writers like Dennis Lehane. So this is a truly a hard-boiled murder mystery. This is a hard-boiled thriller, and the central character of that is kind of a mix between Lisbeth Salander of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo and Clint Eastwood's character in those Sergio Leone movies, The Man with No Name. So it's a character of a person who has come into a city with no background, and nobody knows where she has come from, nobody knows what she wants, and then she gets involved into a series of increasingly complicated things and how she extricates herself out of that. I'm writing that. I'm enjoying my writing. I really don't know when it will get completed, but that is something which is my next project.
Definitely looking forward to that. But apart from that, are you looking at sort of converting these into screenplay, or see, if you are writing as a depth, and which I believe it has, can it be made into movies? Can it be made into TV serials? Correct. And we know, at least in Marathi horror TV serials, at least on 2-3 channels, they will keep playing almost every day, right? So any plans around that? How do you plan to do that? Any discussions on that you can
So
tell us about?
last year I underwent a transformative experience, and I'm still undergoing that experience, called Spiral Bound. So Mr. Baman Irani, who is, I mean, I don't really need to tell you who he is, but he started this particular group called Spiral Bound of people who want to learn how to write screenplays, screenwriting. And the way we do that is to study well-written English films, mainly. So until now, we have restricted ourselves to English films, and we try to sort of glean some common threads that come out of them and apply them to our writing. I have been doing this for the last, I've been attending that class for a little over 16 months now, if I'm not wrong. And in one word, that has been a life changing experience for me as far as my writing is concerned. So I think a lot of things that I didn't know about screenwriting, and a lot of things that I didn't know about writing, forget screenwriting, but writing in itself, have become apparent to me by working and studying with this wonderful group headed by Baman, and also by and he is helped by Anush Irani, who is award-winning playwright who teaches creative writing in Canada. And we are a big group of, I don't even remember how many people we are now, but those people, and there is a genuine spirit of camaraderie and kinship between us, and we try to sort of help each other in our own writing. So I think that has really gave me a lot of boost in terms of looking at screenwriting. Tears for Strangers, which was my second novel published on Juggernaut, I have converted that into a screenplay, and right now we are working on that screenplay in terms of I'm reading it to a few people and getting some kind of a feedback from them. God willing, I may land a deal. Nobody knows when that would happen. And other than that, you write for the. I mean, again, I think writing with the express intent of selling something is actually a very tricky proposition in today's market. So I think you should write for the joy of writing, but then you should write good enough so that people would want to pay money to read you.
Absolutely, and all the best for that. So I hope that I don't know what format it is, but let's say it is a TV serial. I'll not be watching it in the evening. Definitely, I'll watch it next day afternoon, right? So, but my family will watch it. And then only I think last question from my side, related one. You are attending this workshop by Bhuvan Irani. I am sure you would have done something like this in the past. I think you had conducted yourself a workshop on writing some time back, right? So are you planning to do it more frequently, and in terms of developing other authors, right? Now
I
with these I think I've seen how you have grown personally as a writer, and I think as you correctly mentioned, Kumbapur, etc. Then I think Nagin was really something where I thought, and I complimented you on that, right? And this one is really even better than Nagin, I would say, right, in terms of the grip that it has on the audience. So now probably is the time when you can start nurturing talent in others, right? So anything you have, thoughts you have on that?
I should do writing workshops more often if only I find the internal discipline to do that. There is nothing stopping me other than the fact that I really like to spend too much of time watching sitcom reruns on TV and reading what I like to read. And I also have a business to run other than all of this. But yeah, hopefully, I think I'm planning to do one more workshop in September, if not August.
Great. So I think that will be really fantastic for a lot of authors, specifically on the fiction side. So we have one comment from Deepak asking me no Excel sheets. No, of course I haven't given up on Excel sheets, and that's why I'm probably stuck.
No, no.
I
And
think.
by the way, Shailendra, you should not give up either. So, like I said, that an author of no less talent and success as Ashwin Sanghi and James Patterson stick to the method that probably is close enough to yours. So I don't think anybody should change the method based on that. You should find out what works for you. There is an author called John Irving. His most famous book that people would know about is called The Cider House Rules. It was made into an Oscar-nominated picture starring Michael Caine and Charlize Theron and Tobey Maguire. So he says that I write the last line first. So he says that I want to know how my book is ending before I should start writing it. Now, he is again an author who is critically and commercially very successful. So if it works for him, it works for him. So
different strokes. Great. So I think, yeah. So Deepak, let's continue with the Excel sheets and see how we go. Viraf Patel has a question, Mayur, to you. When you write a book for the faint-hearted people like me who get afraid by horror stories. So Viraf, one thing I'll tell you is, read it in the afternoon, like I tried to do. Yeah, but Mayur, do you plan to,
yeah.
sort of?
So Viraf, actually, I have written in both genres, supernatural as well as non-supernatural. I have written two novels called The Dark Road and Tears for Strangers, which are available on the Juggernaut digital app. Those are murder mysteries, those are not horror novels. Some of the short stories that I have written, so for example, Nagin really doesn't have elements of horror the way A Bad Place or Kumbapur Rising have. Those are more like fantasy stories. So if you are not afraid of reading, say, Lord of the Rings, I don't think you'll be afraid to read Nagin either. I have really not written a non-crime or non-supernatural story until now. So I have not written, for example, a literary fiction kind of a story or a romantic story for now. Whether I'll write them or not, I'm really not sure. So I mean, I always like to try my hands at different things. So, for example, earlier this year, I reread the dramas written by Tennessee Williams. So I reread not reread, I read A Streetcar Named Desire for the first time, and I read Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. And after that, I was actually thinking of experimenting with drama as a medium. So these are thoughts which are there. Some of them come off, some of them don't. So as a writer, I think it is very dangerous for you to get too attached to an idea or an inspiration. So as counterintuitive as it sounds, inspiration is actually relatively cheap. So I have very rarely had a fully formed story come to me as an inspiration. Most of the time, that inspiration will be that tiny speck which is there, and you need to work around it. You need to so think of it as something which is buried in the ground, and you need to do a lot of digging around that in order to know whether that's a diamond which is buried or that's just a piece of uh, shiny marble. So as a writer, you should never be afraid of experimenting and abandoning that experiment if it doesn't work for you. So I have abandoned writing projects after writing 10,000, 15,000. I have abandoned a writing project after writing 38,000 words. So if I convert that into a book, it is like writing 160 pages and then saying that, okay, this book is not working. But That is how the game is, and which is why I keep on coming back to this fundamental idea of enjoying your writing. So if you are enjoying the process, I have enjoyed the process of writing an unsuccessful 160 pages as I have enjoyed the process of writing successful 196 pages.
Great. So, Viraj, so you have two books that you can buy right now today, right? So I think that will be a great thing to happen. So Mayur, thanks. And I think really I feel a little bit better now. You know, you said you abandoned the book after 160 pages. I have abandoned 3 novels, as you know, midway through. So I hope
I
I'll
have
take it up.
completed 5, Shailendra.
This is very bad. Towards the end of the interview, I have not been nasty to you, and you are reminding me of that. So this is how Mayuresh keeps telling me every time. No, but that's okay. So no, but I think it can happen in the process, and I think some of us who could have done that. You know, the reason I said this is I know people, right, who start writing and they leave it midway. So maybe we can take heart from the fact that it does happen at times, right? And then look at, okay, let me get this one out, correct? And
So-
then maybe we'll look at those.
Okay, allow me to just sort of come in here, when to abandon and when not to abandon. So basically, it's a bad idea to abandon writing because it sounds like hard work. So now today, in the story that I'm writing right now, I have reached a place where the story has got way more complicated than I was thinking it would. Storyteller, my novel, which will now follow a bad place. Actually, after writing about 3/4 of the book, I realized that I had run too many narrative threads, and those narrative threads were impossible to tie together. So I knew that there was a lot of rewriting to be done in terms of cutting some parts out. That is a bad reason to stop writing, because what happens is that you have been presented a challenge, and until and unless as a writer you learn to face that challenge, you will never take that step towards writing a completed manuscript, which is an achievement in itself. A lot of times what would happen is that what sounds like a promising idea, if the fundamental premise starts sounding hollow to you, if you realize that, okay, fundamentally this thing doesn't work, then you should consider. And a lot of times an idea that you have abandoned might come back to you in a completely different format, and you start writing. That has happened to me also. So one of the stories in Nagin, I had actually attempted to write as a full-length novel, and then I failed. And then I realized that, okay, if I only change one element to the Nagin element, it is working as a short story, and so I added that. So
Great. Yeah, so thanks for answering that question as well. I think it's very helpful. So that brings me towards the end of the session. We don't have any questions from the participants right now. So Mayuresh, thanks a lot. I think though we keep meeting, today when I prepared for interviewing you, right, there are a lot of things that I learned from you today, which I wouldn't have met in our 10 meetings at Vadeshwar, right? So thanks a lot for making this
Thank you
time
for that.
available to us, and being genuinely telling what you feel, right? And a lot of learning from you today, and wishing you all the best for all your coming up projects.
thank you so much. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
to all attendees who attended this session, and my thanks to Indic Academy, Abhinav Agarwal, and Mr. Harikiran. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mayuresh. Thanks, everyone.
And the book is available on Amazon and on Kindle. Please go and buy the book, read my book. There is nothing better that you can do to encourage aspiring writers, struggling writers, than to read their book. So, A Bad Place, available on Amazon and on Kindle. Please read it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Great. All the best, Mayuresh.
Thank you.